As you're joining, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, saying who you are, what school you're from, where you're at in your social work career, academically or professionally, as we do that. And then as you're coming in, if you want to take a look at this QR code, it'll take you to a screen, which will give you the prompt at the top, and let us know what social work means to you. And we'll see what that prompt gives us here in a little bit. Again, while you're joining, if you just want to drop in the chat where you're from, what school you go to, of course your name, and where you're at in your social work career, academically or professionally. That'd be great. That'd be fantastic. Still see a couple are trickling in. Jess and I got the backgrounds covered.
I was going to say you're rocking the backgrounds.
Yeah.
As you're coming in, if you want to scan the QR code, it'll take you to a prompt where you can tell us what social work means to you. I should do that too while I'm sitting here. Wonderful. Seeing people are clicking that QR code. Just need to take your phone and scan it with the camera, and it'll take you to the website where it'll ask you this prompt. Seeing all kinds of good submissions onto that. So thank you very much. As I saw Jess drop that as into the chat for you to also get to. So while you are doing that, just want to tell you some upcoming events here at the NASW. We have these upcoming events. We have the What is a Social Work License and Why Not Is It Important? Introduction to the ASWB exam, what new social workers should know, clinical job hunting, where to begin, and watch out, risks and liability concerns for students and new professionals. If you want an easy way to get to those events, and we'd love to have you come back to those, so you can scan that QR code down there in the bottom right. It'll take you to our national website where you'll be able to register for those events and you'll be able to see those links all there as well. Wonderful. Thank you, thank you. All right, so now I bet you're wondering who these people are on the screens in front of you, and I will do the introductions for you. So first we have Lisa Avery. Lisa is in her final semester of her MSW at the University of New Hampshire. She obtained her bachelor's in physical therapy at the University of Vermont and was practicing in outpatient orthopedics prior to retiring home with her children. For the past 12 years, she has been working in her family business, but once her boys graduated high school, she felt that she needed a change in careers. For her first internship, she was in behavioral health at a multi-specialty clinic, and most recently, she's been interning with the NASW Vermont chapter. She is passionate about macro social work, and after graduation, she is hoping to work on policy and program development for the perinatal population. So welcome, Lisa. We also have Cara. Cara is an MSW student at Michigan State University and is pursuing a social work and health career certificate. Cara completed her undergraduate degree in human development and social relations at Kalamazoo College. And for the past 12 years, Cara has worked at a large managed care organization providing Medicaid and Medicare services. And during this time, she was responsible for the development, implementation, and oversight of many different case management programs and enterprise-wide clinical programs. After the completion of her MSW, Cara hopes to support healthcare providers in addressing their own mental health and self-care needs, and in order to help prevent and mitigate burnout. Cara believes it is important to recognize that providers are people too, and acknowledging and addressing their needs will enable them to better support their patients whom they serve. So welcome, Cara.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Jess. Jess received her bachelor's in social work with a minor in political science. Oh, did you see that switch? Whoa, there it is. Where was I? With a minor in political science from St. Edward's University, her primary professional focuses involve community engagement, student empowerment, and public policy practice. During her time in undergrad, she held a variety of leadership positions, including her role as co-chair of the College Student Commission at the City of Austin, where she mobilized the creation of a grant program aimed at funding food insecurity services on college campuses. Jess served as a previous intern for NASW Texas, where she developed the My NASW Student Community online forum as a dedicated networking space for student members. Since graduating, she has come aboard as a student engagement coordinator for NASW Texas to intentionally and strategically engage, recruit, and retain social work student members across the state. And in addition to her role with NASW Texas, Jess also serves as the Austin Fellow for Ignite, which is a national nonpartisan nonprofit organization that empowers and trains young women to become political leaders. And when Jess is not working, you can find her eating good food, cozied up watching a movie with her friends, or hiking around Austin trails with her wiener dog, Bean. And I am Grant Vermilya. I am the BSW intern at the NASW chapter here in Michigan. I am about to become a BSW graduate from Siena Heights University in May, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. I believe now Jess has a little activity for us.
Awesome. Thanks so much for those introductions, Grant. You nailed it. All right, so just to kind of kick off this celebration, this is an opportunity, obviously, to do some peer networking and collaborate on finding solutions and pathways post-grad, but we're also here to celebrate social workers and social work students. And to honor that, we're really asking y'all to do a call to action. So this is great for Twitter, but you know what? If you have Facebook or another Instagram or other platforms that you want to use, please do so. But I'm going to drop a link to basically what the slide says, but in a document. That way y'all can just copy and paste, easy peasy. Awesome, copy link, and there it is in the chat. Perfect. So what I'm asking y'all to do, basically, first step, copy, paste, edit, post. So you just copy the message that is in the document. It just says, I'm celebrating Social Work Month with at NASW by recognizing the accomplishments of amazing social workers. I'm so proud of blank, and you could tag someone. You could tag a professor. You could tag someone that you look up to as a mentor, your supervisor, or you could tag a social work student and talk about the work that they're doing as a student, because I know that y'all are doing real work, not just learning about it. And for their work with blank, and you can kind of fill in the blank there, and then use some hashtags so that we can all follow that. And it actually helps for the algorithm, pro tip, to add in an image or something media linked. So you could post a photo of the social worker you're highlighting. You'll have a photo together. That's always fun. Or you could actually link a video, which is also in the document, to copy and paste that link, which is just a video about the time is right for social work month theme and the importance of social workers. Or there's a graphic in the document as well that you can use that just says the time is right for social work. So I really encourage y'all to do that. I'm going to be posting this a couple of times because I personally have several social workers that I would like to highlight today. So post this as many times as y'all like, and I'll be looking for those. So maybe at the end, if we have time, we can, see who did that. But if you want to put done in the chat as soon as you've done it, that would be awesome.
Thank you, Jess. And I hope you all get to do that, and we can pull this up at the end and see who's here celebrating, and get to let everyone else know you're celebrating too. And now I believe it's time for a little bit of trivia, hopefully have the opportunity to win some prizes. And we'll start with a little practice question first, just so we're all on the same page. They'll all be multiple choice. If you want to put your answer in the chat when you think you know what it is, the first answer in the chat will win a prize, but don't worry, we'll give everyone the chance to answer anyway. But here we go. So this is a practice question. What year was the NASW created? A, 1975, B, 1945, C, 1967, or D, 1955? Ooh. See a few answers coming in. D, 1955, B. If you said D, 1955, you are correct. NASW works to enhance the professional growth and development for its members, to create and maintain standards for the profession, and to advance social sound policies. And NASW also contributes to do the well-being of individuals, families, and communities throughout its advocacy, and all since 1955. Good work. You all understand how this show is going to work. In that case, I believe Anissa Simone would have won that round, but we'll move on to, this is the first question. First question, if you win, if you just want to DM me on the Zoom chat, your email, and we'll follow up with you after. But here we go. Question number 1. What year was the first social work class offered at a university, and which one of those universities do you think it is? Let's see. Ooh. Good answers, good answers. Ooh. See, all right, 5-second countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. The correct answer is B, 1898 at Columbia University. I think Sabrina Maldonado won that one. If you want to DM me your email. As you can see, the first social work class was offered in the summer of 1898 at Columbia University. The university continues to have one of the top ranked social work programs in the nation. I don't know if we have any Columbia social work students in here, but now you know. All right, ready for question 2. Congratulations, Sabrina. Let's see. What is at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? taking you back to BSW days, maybe those intro classes, those last time you might have heard of this one. But what's at the top? What's at the top of that one? Thank you, Sabrina. I got that. Let's see. All right. 5, 4, 3, and 2, and 1. If you said, oh, no, don't look. Self-actualization, you are correct. I don't know who said C first, but I believe it was Simone. So if Simone Zumbato would like to DM me in the chat your email and we'll follow up with you later. Congratulations. 2 more questions in social work theme trivia. Question number 3 is, this federal government agency is the largest employer of social workers with a master's degree. A, Department of Health and Human Services, B, Department of Labor, C, U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, or D, General Accounting Offices. Which one do you think it is? Lisa, which one do you think it is?
I know the answer to this, so I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, I do see a lot of A's.
It's the only one I knew the answer to.
Everyone has said the same answer in this one. All right.
Mix it up a little bit, guys.
Gotta mix it up. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We have the answer here, and it is C, the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. That question got almost all of you. I see 1 C. Sabrina already won that. You already won 1, Sabrina. Congratulations, you're just as good for winning 2. We'll move on to question number 4. Final chance. This women's rights and anti-lynching advocate played a key role in shaping the social work profession. Was it A, Brene Brown, B, Mary Church Terrell, C, Margaret Sanger, or D, Ida B. Wells? Answers in the chat.
We should all know this one, right? Did you know this one, Grant?
I think I knew this one when I first saw it. Let's see. All kinds of, oh, this one's a little more diverse in our answers and which ones we're choosing compared to our last one. All right, final 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. If you said D, Ida B. Wells, you got this one correct. Wells worked with Jane Addams, considered the mother of social work profession, to stop the adoption of racially segregated schools in Chicago. Wells was one of the founders of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and also worked with other organizations of her time to lay the foundation for the modern social work profession. And looking back up here, I believe Amy Kelly might have been the first one to get this one. If Amy Kelly would like to DM me your email.
Grant, did you see the comment by Dwayne?
Oh, Ida also had a Barbie created for her this year. Congratulations, Ida.
Very cool.
Well, thank you all for playing social work themed trivia. If you were one of our winners, DM me your email in the chat and I will get you your prize. I'll follow up with you later. But now I believe we have some time for appreciation and praises, Cara.
Yeah, thank you. So we wanted to make sure we use this as a platform for you all to recognize and praise yourself or someone else that you know that's in the session today or someone at your school that is really you know, deserve some recognition for their work as a social worker. So if y'all want to, you can put it in the chat, or if you want to come off mute and say something as an appreciation or recognition for yourself or some of your peers, that would be great.
Grant, can I go? Is that all right?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I actually want to put up the name of Lynn Stanley. She's my supervisor and she's the executive director for NASW, and she was handling Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine for quite a long time while Maine was looking for a new executive director. So this legislative period has been incredibly challenging, managing 3 states. And and particularly dealing with New Hampshire. So she's been absolutely amazing.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Yeah, for sure.
I will similarly call out Dwayne, our executive director in Michigan, as he's taken on a ton of roles with the transition for with the previous executive director into his role and some other changes in the org. So doing like 3 jobs at once, and an incredibly, you know, skilled and way to do it, and always on top of everything we ever ask of him. So I'm kudos to, we're very lucky, obviously, to have all of these great executive directors supporting us at NASW. Thanks for sharing in the chat, Maria. So you've got one of your professors at school is pursuing her PhD in social work. And that is definitely right. A lot of work on top of her own work and education. Go ahead, Pilar.
I'd like to recognize the community organizing professor, Dr. Steve Burkhart. He's also the person who wrote The End of Social Work, and not only is he just an amazing professor, but bringing attention to the fact that, you know, social workers deserve to be treated with more equity. I think that was just exactly what this profession needed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Dwayne did a great call out here for all the students who have pushed through this, our crazy reality over the last few years, which is totally true, right? It's been very different program or experience than what I was anticipating. And I bet you all are feeling probably very similar. So big round of applause for everyone here.
I have a quick shout out.
Yeah.
So in my role with student engagement, you know, I work with a lot of different schools, and I have just been so amazed and impressed with the student leaders who organize like their social work student associations. Student org stuff is hard, and I did a lot of it in undergrad, and it's especially hard making the transition from virtual to in person and trying to learn what a hybrid situation even looks like. And, you know, for so many of these students, like they have only had an online experience and are being thrust into an in-person experience and trying to be leaders on their campus and organize with other social workers and build community. And I've just been really impressed with the resilience of our social work student leaders. So if you're in one of those, thank the leadership and thank yourself for showing up to those meetings, you know? And if you're not involved, you should be, because those are a great place to get connected on your campus.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. If you have more, or go ahead, please. Sorry, I was.
Yeah. Yes. I'd like to give a shout out to our Florida State College of Social Work. As Maria had said earlier about one of her professors, this was my first year in my BSW program, and predominantly all of my professors were on that track, and about 4 of 6 of them have already defended their dissertation and have actually successfully defended it. And so it is some inspiring for professors to have to go through that, and they're very willing and open to discuss that process. So those of us coming right alongside them can look at that. That is something that is attainable.
Awesome. That's very cool to see. And especially that the school is supporting their own investment in their education. So thank you so much for sharing. Any others that want to share?
I was going to lift up, I was going to lift up two areas that have already been brought up, but I was going to lift up my cohort and all of y'all cohorts as well as you've gone through. And some of you are very close to graduating, and like Dwayne said in his message, you know, these last 2 years have been something, but we're very close, very close. Time is moving quickly again, and it seems like we're right around the corner. So shout out to your cohorts everywhere, especially you graduating cohorts. Congratulations, you're so close. We're so close. And I was also going to lift up Dwayne and the gang over at NASW Michigan. It's been a privilege to be the intern there this school year, and all of them are very awesome and have done great things throughout these crazy times as well. So I just want to lift them up. Alrighty, I think now is our opportunity to maybe do some sort of breakout rooms. I know Dwayne isn't using his voice, but he's using the chat. I do not know if those are ready. But this will give us a little opportunity to network, use the chat, our voices while we're in this time to just connect, share what your experience is, where you're at in terms of your social work career, academically, professionally, give tips, share resources. I'm not seeing anything yet from him. Oh, working on it. Perfect. So this will just give us a little time to, just an opportunity to meet more social work people like you all over. We are hoping that you take away things that, especially you graduating cohorts, like we just mentioned, have some kind of guidance into this time that's happening next, and get to hear from people like our panel who have all been through different steps in this experience, different times through education, different times through different programs, different jobs. So I hope that you use your panelists to the best of your ability, because they have a lot of experience behind them. And there's, oh, I see something now. Okay, I see I should go to this room. I'm clicking on this button now. All right. They always get you mid-sentence.
We got out.
They sure do.
Sabrina, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I saw the timer and I was like, should have known.
I know, I was sitting in there and I was like, I'm trying to give you the best answer I can with 20, 15, 10 seconds, but we tried. Well, I hope you were able to get some good dialogue, good sharing and connecting between those that were in your breakout room. I'm not sure how easy it is to replicate that or by putting people in other rooms. But maybe this can be more of a group discussion. Or first, was there anything from your breakout room that was like, yo, people need to know that? And maybe there wasn't anything.
We hadn't really gotten to be able to get to tips too much. It was mainly just intros. So but there are a few questions that I got from some of the people in our session that are specific to states. So I might do some follow-up with you and Dwayne after, and Jess.
Yeah.
I didn't really, Maria was giving us some really great examples on how she's networking actually up on the hill, and some amazing experiences she's having. But I don't know, did any of you in the group, any groups talk specifically about NASW committee meetings at all for networking?
I actually was talking with Simone about kind of not necessarily networking or committees, but kind of like how the NASW might benefit a student by we have these type of conversations as they come up in your school year. You know, you start the school year, you're in a brand new field placement, NASW gives you this event on how to get the most out of supervision. You know, some people's field supervisors super involved, want to talk to you every day. Sometimes go a couple weeks. So how do you get the most out of that? Another thing, and then we have an event like this towards the end, which is a town hall networking, kind of talk about those career things as you're about to go into those next conversations or time in your life as well. So I think that's something that that I know it's not something specific to like a committee or anything, but I know that's a benefit.
I've just found the committees in states of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. You don't even have to be a member to attend some of these committee meetings, a member of NASW, but you get to engage with professionals that are in the workforce, and there's lots of conversation going on where there's job openings, you know, what's kind of the feel of the state, what's going on. You can keep ahead of things, but we've had 3 or 4 people in New Hampshire and Vermont move up to the area, start attend the meetings, and got jobs. Because they were at those meetings and they were able to make those connections.
Awesome.
Something that was brought up, we didn't get too much into it, so I feel like I didn't get to really talk about it too much, but I can now. We had a student in our breakout who is sociology, but looking to get a master's in social work within the next couple of years. And she was just asking the group about kind of how you came to social work. So we got to talk about kind of our roots and how we got started with the field. And I also talked a little bit about kind of the diversity of the profession. And I think it's very unique in that way. There are so many different settings and populations and levels to social work. And just to kind of throw some advice out there for that student, but also for anyone kind of thinking about grad schools, whenever you're looking at where you want to go, really think about what program is going to be right for you. And I always say kind of backwards plan it. If you have a couple of kind of career goals, think about which program is really going to craft an experience that leads you to that. You know, there are so many different programs and so many different tracks at every school, especially once you get into some of the macro level ones too. There's community organizing, there's nonprofit management, there's policy practice, and not every school will have every single one. So whenever you're thinking about what's right for you, I would really focus on not just the quality of the school. Obviously there's other factors, right? Accessibility and all that, but really think about, you know, what is the coursework like? What do I want to learn? Because there's so much to learn within social work, and that track decides what that will be for you.
Mm-hmm. And maybe since we didn't have the opportunity to maybe get to all the points in our breakout room, maybe a question for the general attendees, but maybe if someone on the panel feels called to answer, what is your preferred method of networking? Is it LinkedIn, social media? Or is it kind of like a Google Sites or Google Resume shared type thing? Or is it events and conferences like this? What do you see as your preferred, or where you've gotten the most success out of?
I'll go back to NASW. I have made the most connections just attending these meetings and attending the state conferences. You get, they bring in amazing speakers. So you not only get to engage with professionals, and there's also lots of businesses that sponsor. For example, Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center was a huge sponsor for the main conference. And they're up front looking for jobs, you know, they want employees, and all of these people presenting at the tables want employees. So it's a great place to network, are those conferences.
I would agree that NASW, like I've personally been engaged with the board, and I think it's expanded my scope of understanding of social work and what the practice is, especially here local in Michigan. And I just, you know, I didn't even think to apply. And then all of a sudden I did. I was even a little bit late, and I was still able to make this spot or get elected to be on the board. And it's also prompted me to engage with other student communities that I wouldn't had I not had this position. So I do think that that kind of organization is important. The other thing that I've done outside, or like in my life before becoming a social worker, I always encourage people to just reach out to individuals that you might respect or see what they like. And you could be seeing them because you're on LinkedIn or you're on Facebook or you're part of the same like groups, because there's so many groups now in different social media sites that they post a lot and you agree with their messages. Reach out to them and say, hey, can I just have coffee? Or I'm trying to learn how to do this thing, or I'm trying to make this decision. And the worst they're going to say is no. And most often people are always going to say yes, right? Like kind of like talking about ourselves. We all like to make friends with other people. We just might not be the person to do it in the beginning. So I would say, don't be afraid to reach out to other people. Know that even if you do, the worst they're going to say is no, and probably not, because you're asking for help and it feels good for us to help other people. And everybody in this field is doing it for a reason that's similar to have a want or desire to help others.
Cara, I was going to say social workers are the most dependable group of individuals and willing to help. So when you reach out to a group of social workers, they're all going to step up, and they're going to be more than willing to answer questions, meet with you, have coffee, even have some of those hard discussions around salaries, questions about benefit. I haven't met a social worker yet that's not willing to sit down and have a conversation with me.
Yeah, y'all make really great points. And I would, echo everything that you said. My preferred method is definitely events and conferences. I have done very well to kind of brand myself as someone who shows up. And I'm obviously more in a political social work space as well. And so that doesn't just mean, you know, social work spaces, but political spaces as well. And, you know, I've met a city councilwoman 4 or 5 times. She knows me on a first name basis. She's not even my city councilor, because I go to the events that she goes to. And that's how you do it, is you see people and you guys get familiar with each other, and you see them more than once, then that they are also looking for alliances and colleagues and, you know, mentors, either peer mentors or you know, in another form. But I think the hardest part about networking is not making the touch, but retaining the relationship. And so definitely, to emphasize what Cara said, you know, whether it's LinkedIn or an event, whatever space that you kind of identify someone that you want to work with, reach out and set a coffee meeting, because networking is about building relationships. And once you initiate that relationship in a group environment, it is the hard part is then following up and making sure that then becomes a one-on-one relationships, and you create an intimate networking space outside of the broader one that you just engaged in. And so that's really important. And I also would say, make sure you kind of have an idea of the reason you want this connection. Is it because there's an event that you want to partner on? Is it because you're looking for a mentor long-term? Is it because you have a couple of questions about their career field? You know, it can be, you can set up a coffee meeting to talk to anyone about anything, but it does help to kind of have a mission going in and to clearly communicate that mission as something that's mutually beneficial.
Thank you, Jess. And I'm seeing in the chat that we see events and conferences come up, formal, informal settings, social media and LinkedIn are my most active way in staying in network with colleagues, because it's so great because you don't have to be there face to face. You know, it can be hard to ask for help or start building those connections for sure. Someone said, I agree with Jess, just got to get your name, or just getting your name out there is a big step. Maybe if I'm a BSW, well, I am a BSW student. And maybe I'm more earlier in my figuring out social works, figuring out connections, networkings and their importance. Where do I, first thing, what should I start doing? You guys have any tips?
Join NASW.
My cohort is so sick of me saying that, but it's true, Jess. It really is. Social work, as social workers, we learn to advocate for others, and somehow we find it challenging to advocate for ourselves. So if we can learn to advocate for ourselves as well as we can advocate for others, it becomes quite easy to reach out. And we just need to remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say join and go to the events, because I think that I've had a lot of people in my cohort join, but they're not, it does take a little bit of time to, you know, go to an event, and we're already sitting in our computers. Most things are on Zoom, but I get so much value out of the events that I do. And in Michigan, we have regional meetings once a month, and that is an opportunity for me to meet all of the social workers in the same county that I live in, right? And so that gave me an opportunity to meet someone that works for a congressperson that lives not that far from me, right? Like I would have never met this person had I not gone to that regional meeting. And it's a great connection for me to have in future advocacy work I might want to do. So sign up and go to the sessions. And they're really good content, like really beneficial, helpful content. So.
I'll also just add, aside from NASW, because I feel like that has been covered, you know, it's a great opportunity. There are so many resources, but anyways, I also, again, would think about it from a strategic point of view. What kind of networks are you looking to create? And what spaces are you looking to create those networks in? Are you looking for other experienced social workers who work at your organization? Are you looking to get a job with organizations that pique your interest? Are you just looking for someone to kind of, I guess, connect with? I just feel like once you kind of identify the type of network you're trying to build, then you can kind of do some research, right? Who are the big players? Who are the people I should be looking at? Who should I be adding on LinkedIn? Just add people like it's no thing. I mean, people, that's what it's for. And so I would just start there, kind of think about what kind of network you're looking to build, what types of social workers in what roles with what populations do you want to build community with? And I will also say, you are in school to learn, and there is student involvement on campus to help you learn to do this. Whether it's a social work student association, whether it is, I don't know, student government or behavioral health organization or Pride or whatever the organization is, if you get involved with that, you'll have the opportunity to learn leadership skills, especially if you pursue a leadership role. And in that, not only will you learn to network by building community with other students and learning together, but you'll also, if you're in a leadership role, have the opportunity to maybe help coordinate some things that would require a guest speaker. And then you can get experience on behalf of a student organization, reaching out to the community, gathering contacts, and building that face-to-face communication to ask for them to be panelists and guest speakers and come to meetings, or talk to your group or whatever. So that helps you kind of have a framework for which you do engage and gives you a reason to engage with someone as well.
And I don't want to take too much shine off of what Jess might be talking about later, but something that I've another NASW thing that I've come in contact with this past year was that my NASW platform, that social community is pretty cool. I remember when I was starting out my BSW, I remember one of my first assignments were interview a social worker, ask them these questions, write a paper, do it, and where to start. And I didn't know of my NASW at the time, but I know that's something you see quite often, are people just reaching out, hey, who can I get to schedule a last second type interview? Who is someone that is real versed in this area of the field that I can ask because it matches this class that I'm in. So I know just recently in the last year, that's something that I've become a little bit more involved looking at and things like that. So I think that's a good spot. And I think a good spot also is this, as we've been in this virtual space, is taking advantage of the virtual space, like Jess said, LinkedIn, add everyone you know and anyone you might have passed before, because I think that is something that's very common and needed. And like someone said, it's hard to ask for help. And you know, if you start building your connection, you got a lot of support behind you. So that network, you get a lot of support behind you. So thank you very much for that part. And maybe we won't go into breakout rooms for kind of this discussion. And I encourage anyone to ask questions, share tips, resources either in the chat or by just raising your hand in a meeting. But kind of, so here we are. We have gotten through those first few years of BSW. We've had our field placements. We're maybe thinking about MSW programs, maybe entering work first. What is your experience with that next step? What is some guiding words of encouragement maybe that got you to where you guys are? That can be anyone in the chat, on the panel.
Well, I think part of it too is if anyone's looking at macro work, is to be comfortable looking outside the box. You don't Google search social worker in your job search if you're doing macro work. You have to be, you have to look at some alternatives. It's not going to be listed under social worker. And I think what's really important is evaluating the skills that you've developed in your education, writing those down, and then matching those to a job. Realizing your skills can be used in a multiple job opportunities.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'll just add, so I'm graduated with my BSW, but I haven't pursued an MSW yet. And I decided that I wanted to take a couple of years to get into the workforce and kind of decide what program would be right for me in the future. And I personally, that worked for me. But I will say it's a tough market out there. So if you're going straight into it, I understand. But really how I navigated that was it was relationship building. I built relationships with people during school, during my social work practicum and at my internship and with the organizations that I had worked with, you know, throughout school. And I just really maintained those relationships, and that turned into a job. I created my own job at NASW Texas because I had invested in a relationship with the ED there and argued for the importance of students. And I think that that's also something to consider too. Like, think about that. If you're in your internship right now, is there a gap that you could be filling? How can you build a structure to make sure that the needs of your clients are being met even better? What can you bring to the table that they would want to keep you? You know, how are you going to prove your worth and your value? What are your skills? Kind of like what you were saying, Lisa. Yeah, it's difficult to kind of put blind applications out there, but if you can start thinking about opportunities now and really hold on to the relationships that you're building, that might help you navigate that better. You'll have great references. You'll have people advocating for you. You never know who people know, and a phone call could change anything. So just keep that in mind too, that a lot of it is relationship building. So no relationship is invaluable.
Yeah, I would echo all that you said, Jess, especially on the relationship pieces. And it's important to maintain those connections and also like be of service too, right? Where relationships are two-sided, so you can't just be expecting something from other people. There's things that you should be can and offer to that individual as well. I had a very unique experience because I've worked at the same organization for the last 13 years, and it started as a family-owned organization. I was one of 125 employees. 3 years ago, we were sold to a publicly traded company, and we were like 3,000 employees. And now I work at Centene, which is like the 4th largest managed care organization, ensuring 1 in 15 Americans, and we have 70,000 employees. And I just kind of stuck around for the ride. There were times in the past 4 years through it that I did not like my job, but I stuck around and kind of networked. And honestly, very similar to what you were saying, Jess, like I was in a role I did not want to be in, but I saw this clinical team that, and I had a skill set from before, and I reached out to them and I said, hey, do you have any open roles? And they created a role for me to be able to transition over. And again, this is like one of those things, you ask and the worst someone can say is no. And especially if you have like the evidence to support the reason why you're asking, right? You're not just doing it out of your own interest. There's a need that needs to be filled. People are going to support that and try and advocate for it. And in terms of finding like macro level social work, like no one in my team or my org would say, oh, you're doing macro level social work, but I know that I am because of the education that I've had. And I think the biggest thing is knowing kind of the area you want to go in. And so I work at a managed care organization, which is a health insurance company. I don't think people recognize that that is a place where we are doing rigorous program development using evidence-based practices. And we do it in the same formula that we've learned in social work. It's just now with a Medicaid or Medicare population. And I apply my knowledge in a job I've been doing for a super long time. But you would not find that job if you just searched macro social work, right? Like, so I think if you find and say, oh, I'm interested in being in the healthcare field, everyone focuses on, the front end side of it, working in a facility, but there's all of these managed care organizations or other organizations that are on the back end that really do a lot of this work that we've been trained to do as social workers. So I recommend, if you're interested in that kind of work, looking at managed care organizations. If you have specific questions about it, I'd be happy to talk about my experience or like Centene, the organization I work at specifically. Thanks.
Can I answer? There is a question here. Someone had put for macro work. There was a question about lobbying. Actually, our lobbyist for our NASW chapter in New Hampshire is a social worker. And he also was a politician in New Hampshire prior to that. So I think social work and political work is an amazing connection. And in my opinion, our best politicians in Vermont are the ones that are social workers, because it's all, as you said, Jess, it's all about relationships. Same with the lobbyists. It's all about the relationships and active listening and engaging. And those are the skills we can bring. So whether it's lobbying or being a politician, being and just even in your town or your city, and a select board, and we have a lot of social workers who are also in school boards. Mm-hmm. It's great. Those are great organizations for macro social work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will absolutely emphasize that every political science job or every policy job that exists is also macro social work. And it's different when you have a social work perspective, because you're thinking about lived experiences and you're thinking about the impact on clients and communities. And especially jobs like a lobbyist or a policy analyst, those are really amazing jobs that will specifically value a social worker if the organization is within a realm that impacts social work. So obviously mental health organizations are a great example of, that might be a policy scope, but it's within an issue area that is absolutely social work related. Anything related to basic needs and housing and food security. And, there's just so many different justice issues that intersect with social work. And 8 out of 10 times, I would say, I'm not going to say 9 out of 10, but they'll value you even more with the social work background in that setting. So look for policy jobs that might not say looking for social work degree, because, you know, you can absolutely argue that it's going to be valuable. And one thing I will say about applying for jobs, this is kind of related to the original question, but don't undervalue yourself. Student experience is work experience. And if you're working for an organization that values you, then they'll see that. So any organizing experience you have as, you know, as a student, any leadership roles you have as a student, those all contribute to your qualifications. And so you may be looking at a job and saying, I don't have 1 to 3 years experience. Yes, you do. At school, while you were in school, you did those things, most likely, right? At internship, you did those things. So absolutely, that is as valuable as a paid experience. So just remind yourself of that if you think you're underqualified, read it again.
As a side note, I just applied for a job for Dean of Students for a private school. If you read the description of a Dean of Students, social worker is probably the best fit for that job. And if you were to do a job search for social worker, Dean of Students would not come up. So you really have to be open to thinking outside the box.
Thank you. That was very insightful discussion off of that question. And I guess at this point, well, first I'd like to make something that Lisa said. She had said something about, you know, your passion area. And I think something that a lot of people don't realize is, you know, there's people that might have that same passion and also have social work with them as well. And something that I've been doing throughout this last few months is just look for those coalitions, look for those I guess not committees, but look for those coalitions and organizations that fit your passion and what you want to do with social work big time, you know. And it can be something that I'm passionate about is sports. And I know it's social work month, but there's also this thing called March Madness going on, and I can't get enough of either of them. And so something I just look social work and sport, what's out there. And you can find, you know, there's an official coalition or association, and they have a job listing page. And you know what, NASW, they also have career listing pages and search bars. So I think you really can find those jobs that match exactly what you might be thinking about with what, you know, you have your interests in these areas, but my program says I should be this social worker, or I've been learning how to be this type of social worker. There's that stuff out there. And then once you know, find that best way to advocate for yourself and advocate for your skills to match those roles, I think you're gonna be okay.
Private message me real quick. One of my professors, social work professors, does research on sports, and that's all he does is sports and social workers. So I can connect you.
Definitely would love that contact.
Networking.
Yes, see, you're seeing it happen in real time. So I guess now I'm gonna forget the question I was trying to had come up with. Oh, here we are. So we talked about networking. We talked about how to get that started. You know, early years BSW. We've now talked about how do I start looking for those careers and such. Now I have my first interview. I've given them my first resume. I've got to get ready to give them a resume. Have to prepare for this interview. What kind of things, while you were all looking for those first social work jobs or those first jobs out of college, BSW, MSW, either, or wherever you are, what are some tips or things that you use to kind of get ready for that first interview, first meeting with employers?
So one thing I always counsel people when you're interviewing is if you have the opportunity or a connection with someone else at the organization or aware of the job that you're doing, do that investigation or ask them if they'd be willing to meet with you to talk a little bit more about the org in general. Obviously, or maybe this isn't obviously, do some of your own research about the org. If you can find anything out about the position that you're specifically applying for online, do that. There's sometimes that organizations have org charts available. So you could even see hiring leaders or who would be making the decision. And you could even reach out to that person directly and say, hey, I'm just getting prepared for this. I'd love to get some more insight into what this role might entail. If you're already at an organization, that's a lot easier to do because you have like internal connections that you could use, but definitely do research on the org, the position, and then looking at the job descriptions, match up how you would answer and say you are able to do each of the functions that's listed in a job description. When someone was talking earlier about like waiting to apply until we're fully qualified, I can't remember, I don't want to bring gender in it, but I'm going to bring gender into it. There's this person that shared that men are more likely to apply to a job when they have less than 60% of the qualifications. Women are looking for like 90 to 95%. And you can take a risk, right? You don't have to match each one, but maybe you did something that's similar, or that you can say, hey, or in a perfect example, like Jess was saying, I'm a leader in this type of student organization, and this position talks about project managing. Well, in order to do student leading, you had to have managed some projects or managed a group of people that don't report to you. That's what project management is. So that relates, right? So it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned, but think about how you would extrapolate your experience to meet what their position is requiring.
Yes, and just to build on that, I'm going to hop in. This is how I structure my notes when I go into an interview, all right? I write responsibility or duty, colon, and I write out verbatim the line on the job posting, and then I write evidence, and I make notes about the titles and orgs or whatever that I've worked for that relate to that duty. Or sometimes if it's all blended, I will say like skill that I've built. And I just do that for however many I want to. If I only want to highlight 4 of those, I only write 4 of them. If I want to make sure that I'm fully prepared to answer why I'm qualified in every line, then I'll do all of them. And then I also always write down my questions beforehand. So at the end, in any interview, they will ask you, do you have any questions? Some questions that I recommend you ask, especially if it's an internship position. This is for jobs too, but internships as well. What is your supervision style? What can I expect from that? Is there protected supervision time weekly? Something I also will usually ask is like, what does a day in this position typically look like? Especially, that's a great question, especially if you're a little bit fuzzy on like what it's going to be, but you don't want to say that you don't know. You can just say kind of, can you give me an example of a project I may be managing, or, whatever. But just ask for examples if you're kind of trying to envision yourself in that, and literally just write out how your experience relates to individual responsibilities of the job.
I think having questions prepared, like you're saying, Jess, and Dwayne calls out in the chat, is 100% important. I've been interviewing people for roles on my own team and my peers team, and I'm shocked at how many people say, no, I don't have any questions. To me, that says you're not invested in the role. You didn't do some work, or you didn't think about this really, critically, and you should, right? If you're going to be in this job for a long time. So definitely ask questions.
You also, go ahead, Grant, it's okay.
No, go ahead. I see it now. You
Okay.
like kind of, there it goes.
Yeah, and also I think just being aware, a lot of those employees are still going to ask you, what is it you think you need to work on? Or what is your weakness? You got to know that. Because if you say, I don't have any, or I don't know, they're going to realize that you haven't spent some time reflecting on what your skills are. And so it's important to come prepared with that answer as well.
Yeah, Dwayne just said something that I was going to say. The follow-up is something that I know I think about all the time, because I always think, I swear, what if that person in the waiting room was the next one? Like, what if they are what if we're equal? What if we're the same par for par resumes, answer the questions, knock the same ones out of the park, didn't do too hot on the other ones, and then they just need the little nudge because it's a flip of a coin. sending something as a follow-up is something that I always recommend and something that I like to do. Also, and it just might sound silly, but when was the last time you all might have looked at your resume? I know for sometimes, depending on the season, you get really much put on autopilot with upload resume, upload, and you keep uploading the same one, and you might have gone a few months and done some really cool things. You might have been in some type of trainings or received some sort of certificate through your social work classes or your program. So make sure you're kind of always making note of that. And also with making sure you're updating it, make sure you know what's on it too, so you can also talk about those things. Social work resumes can sometimes be lengthy as you try to fit in how you've accomplished all these things, how you've built those relationships, used these different skills in different ways. Make sure you have that kind of good to go in your mind as well, so you can fast rapid fire those type of things going into interview questions.
I want to just on that piece about your resume is it's important sometimes that to look at that resume against the job description that you're applying for too, because you might be doing something similar, but the verbiage is different and you can modify to match what's in the job description.
And why that's important, not only for the employer person, human being looking at it, but most job applications these days use resume identification software, and they will legitimately compare, like AI will compare the description to your resume and send them a percentage of how much you match that role. And so by making sure to use almost the exact wording for things that are actually apply, that can make or break it for sure. That might determine whether you get an interview. Is just if the software identifies you as a high priority candidate or not.
Exactly. Yep. I know for a fact, for example, my company uses an AI algorithm to review resumes before they ever get to a human. So if you don't have that categorization, you'll never make it past. And I'm going through it right now, trying to help one of my social work friends get a position. And we're going through that experience because it keeps getting rejected. So we might have lost Grant here.
Does anyone else have any specific questions that you didn't get to ask in your breakout? You can type them in the chat, or I don't mind if you come off mute as well, but this is being recorded. I will also just say and add, as I'm thinking about it, like when you're actually starting your job search, obviously a lot of it is scouring those job posting pages. You know, Indeed, Idealist is a really good one for social workers. However, a lot of jobs that actually go up are never posted. And that's the unfortunate situation. And I feel like maybe that's more true for the macro side of things. But don't be afraid to call an organization that you're interested in, regardless if they have a posting, and just ask, because there may be an internal posting that they're circulating that they didn't post on those major websites because they don't have the bandwidth to review a large sum of resumes. And so you never know. There may be an opening that they just aren't really promoting, but they will tell you if you call and are interested in working for them. So just keep that in mind as well, that just because a job opening isn't there at your dream organization doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone. I know that it's intimidating and emails are a little bit easier, but those phone calls can make a difference. So don't be afraid of that.
And it's another opportunity to network.
Absolutely.
If they don't have a position, they may say, we don't have a position, but I know this organization, or let's talk in 3 months because something may be coming up. And just so it's an amazing way to develop those relationships.
That is so true. That is so true.
Jess and Lisa, someone asked in the chat about being able to reach out to us. So I just figured we could put in our emails. I think we also shared LinkedIn's, but that way people can reach out.
Of course. Yeah.
So there's also a question about tips for students balancing work and school. I don't have tips, but I'm right there with you. School, full-time job, and 2 kids. So it's a challenge. one quote that I've really enjoyed hearing, and I cannot remember who the author that said it, but ultimately, like, we're all juggling balls, and sometimes those balls are glass and sometimes they're plastic. And you just have to always know that you're going to catch the glass ball and not the plastic ones, because those will bounce. And so that changes what they are. Sometimes it's going to be my kids in school that they're focused on. Sometimes it's my school, and sometimes it's work that I can't let fall. And knowing that sometimes I'm not going to do that right. Something's going to fall and break and I'm going to have to recover from it. But if I'm really trying to identify what are my highest priority items in each moment, then I'm going to focus on that and giving myself a ton of grace in the process, and know that I'm not going to do it right every time. Sometimes I'm going to be impatient with my kids when I'd rather not be. Sometimes I'm going to miss something at work because I did school work instead the night before. And that's okay. And I can't be perfect, and I can't be 100% for everyone.
Absolutely. And those priorities shift, and that is so okay. I guess I would say too, it kind of depends what your work is, but if you're doing social worky work while going to school, use that as an opportunity to blend those two things. If there's an assignment that relates to your organization, use that together. That's especially true of people who are balancing practicum and coursework, but even if it's a job related to social work that you're being paid for, like, definitely, try to think about how any assignment will relate to your organization, because it just kind of makes it easier, I think, headspace wise. But if it's not, right, which sometimes people just have to have jobs through school to make money, and it's not social work related, that's a little different. But I will say everything is communication. Make sure your professors know exactly what your plate looks like. That way, if you're honest with them and can't turn in an assignment on time, or need flexibility, or you have to miss a class for something, that's not a surprise, and that they know that you are going to get it done, and that you're going to be reliable and accountable, even if there is flexibility there. So again, it's relationship building, it's communication. Communicate with your professors, communicate with your job. That way, whenever you need to reel back a little bit, people can support you on that.
Don't forget self-care. That's now in our code of
I'm going to
ethics.
bring that up. It's so important.
Self-care is so important that it is now in our code of ethics. And that helps you with your balancing of, if I did not do my self-care, I would not have made it through my MSW program. And it's not taking time away. It's actually making you a better person and have the capability and bandwidth to manage your time effectively. So choose that self-care and put it as a priority.
All right, can you all see me now?
Yes, welcome back.
I know, I was in crisis mode for a second, but I think we're okay.
Yeah,
I think we only have a few. Oh, what was that? Sorry.
I said we were just taking some chat questions while you're out, so no worries.
Perfect. Well, I hope things went well. We have a few more minutes, so I didn't know if Jess, you would like me to bring this up.
Yes, please. Well, y'all, I cannot go through an NASW event without promoting membership even more than we already have. So once we get a screen share up, I'm just going to talk to y'all about NASW and student membership. So we're just going to kind of go generally, how does NASW benefit students? And, this event is open and free to everyone. So you may or may not really be aware of it, what NASW does. I'm hoping y'all are aware of it, but just to kind of go over it again. So the National Association of Social Workers is the largest professional membership organization for social workers in the United States, consisting of 55 chapters. And NASW is committed to members' professional growth and development, creating and maintaining professional standards of practice, and advancing social policies that align with our profession and values and code of ethics. And next slide, please.
Oh.
Awesome. So these are what I've identified as kind of the top 5 reasons for students to join NASW. And I could talk all day about each one of these really in depth, but just to give y'all a bite-sized idea. So the first one is building community. So you'll be able to build a community of social workers in person and online through events like this one, volunteer opportunities with your local chapters, and networking tools such as the My NASW kind of member online networking forum, which has a student community specifically to connect with other social work student members, and an all-member forum where you can draw on the knowledge and expertise of NASW professional and student members. So that is an amazing tool, and I know that Grant talked about it earlier. The second reason to join NASW for students is to engage in professional development through webinars and trainings, and access career help via the NASW Career Center and employer-exclusive resume database through the NASW job link. I actually dropped those links in the chat earlier, so if you're a member, you can go visit them today, honestly. Number 3 is to advocate for policy in your community, at the state legislature, and nationally. By joining, you will not only support the efforts of NASW and your chapter to fight for the social work profession and social justice, but you will also have chances to join that fight and have your voice heard as an advocate. Many chapters are so on top of it and provide really amazing resources to make that easy on y'all. The fourth one is to receive an exclusive teal member cord at graduation to show your social work pride. So members only, and y'all get to have that beautiful teal cord at graduation. And number 5, the final one, is to receive a reduced membership cost. So students get 75% off of the professional member rate if you join before graduation. For BSW students, that lasts actually 2 years post-grad. For MSW, it's up to 3. So you're grandfathered into that student reduced price. And this includes that national membership and the chapter membership with that 1 annual payment. And that's only $60, which I know is a little steep, but it is way more affordable as a student, I think, than it would be to pay the full price. And if you want to go to the next slide. Great. And as I was saying, join before graduation to save. So students pay $60 a year. It's 75% off of the full member price. You know, we have a reduced dues after graduation, and it's absolutely worth it to do it as a student. But the membership isn't just to really prepare you to be a professional to transition into that space. There's a lot of value in student membership as a student. So I mean, if you're a freshman and you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, great, I got to make sure to join my senior year, join your freshman year. I mean, there's so much value in NASW as a student, not just a future professional. So I really want to encourage that as well. But if you're approaching graduation, this is your reminder to do it before you walk across that stage. And just to break it down, student membership costs less than a cup of coffee a month. So if that helps you rationalize the cost a little bit, I am okay with that. There's also a QR code on the screen if y'all want to join right now if you're not a member already. I can also drop the join link in the chat if you're interested. Perfect. And I think because it's in the chat, we can go ahead and move on.
Well,
awesome.
you.
Follow us on social media. This is a great opportunity to get connected. And I know that people talked about maybe receiving more communication about these types of student events, but really the best way to stay up to date is to follow our social media to make sure that you are, seeing what's going on and the events that are relevant to y'all. But thank you so much, and I hope you decide to join.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we have one last thing that we had worked on together since we've been in this space. Let me see if I can pull that up, see what that's looking like. If you haven't already done it yet, if you want to drop your LinkedIns into the chat, this was a great opportunity to hear from some of you and you hear from us. Here we go. I'm going to do this. So what does social work mean to you? This is what y'all did. Happy Social Work Month. Here are all the words that you all associate with social work, what we associate with you all. We hope that you enjoyed this opportunity to be with us tonight. And hopefully things are getting warmer where you are. Here in Michigan, we got a lot of rain today, but it's better than snow. But as you go wherever you're going next, be safe, and thank you all. We hope to see you at our next events.